As I have told you before, reflexive monitoring is all about creating a process where we are able to identify the challenges it's all about how we identify challenges and opportunities in a process we're working on. It's also about being able to reflect on those challenges and opportunities. And then it's about being able to also respond to these challenges and opportunities. And in the first exercise I did with you, we tried to make a learning objective explicit. This was about identifying our challenge or opportunity. And the second one, we took some time for reflection. So we reflected on the learning objective. And now you can already see it coming maybe. We're going to try and identify how we can respond to this learning objective. So I'm not sure if you have your booklet still with you. I lost mine, so I hope you did not. And if you remember the learning objective that you wrote down for yourself for this summit, because I would want to invite you all, both in the panel as in the audience, to think about how can we also respond to this learning objective, having all the experiences that we had these past 2 days. Were there some things you have learned maybe? What really stuck with you? And a response to that doesn't need to be an answer. It doesn't need to be, I now have solved my opportunity, I now have solved my question. It can also be that you might want to rephrase your question. It can be the case that you might want to meet up with somebody after this summit. So I would like to invite you all to maybe think a bit about this, like what can I do with the things I have heard in these 2 days? What is a way to respond to this also after today? Yeah, I think that's nice, but maybe also for the people in the audience, take your time to think a bit about this. And maybe also to challenge you a bit, maybe you can think about something you could put in your agenda. So if you could put a reminder for yourself in your agenda, so maybe in a bit you will also know that you have done it once you did. But I think it's a great suggestion to start with our panel. Gillian, I totally agreed. Sitting on this couch, that these chairs are definitely better than the ones in the audience. So can I maybe start with you, or shall I start maybe on the other end, because you just...
My reflection that I put when I was sat in the audience was to connect more. My reflection now is don't say yes. Don't open your mouth. Don't be obliging. And don't be me. Because I think being me is better than I ever thought it was, because some people seem to like what I do. So I'm just going to keep being me. I think that's my reflection. Keep doing what I'm doing.
Well, thank you for that. Can I maybe also ask you what you had for goals for this summit, and also what you want to do after this summit? What have you learned, and what you are taking with you?
I had some attention points. One is I wanted to find some positive energy, and indeed, I heard a lot of positive stories, people being proud of them, and I saw some examples. I heard a quote of handing over the world to the next generation even better than we got it. So marvelous. There is a lot of drive. The concept of plural valuation, that's a marvelous example too in selecting projects. And there too, it is ambitious, and I saw even a disruptive quote, drinkable rivers is far beyond as what we have now in our environment. So for me, an action point is working on this positive energy, taking it out to inclusive projects, especially in the Steamer Hub. That's a marvelous basis to start with. And nature conservation is a complex project, and so this reflective monitoring can be a handy tool there.
Thank you so much for sharing. That sounds
goal achieved.
Amazing. Can you maybe also to share with the audience, like what is something you are doing maybe next week as part of the Steamer Hub working on nature conservation?
I'm active in the nature conservation, so in this project, anyhow, this reflective monitoring will come out, and the inclusive part with the opening of the steamer hub tomorrow, we will have already this opportunity to start with.
Well, I think that's a great invitation to everybody who might be staying tomorrow to also come to the opening of the steamer hub.
Yes.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. It's a great example. Can I pass the word on to you?
What I hope to learn from these days of the Congress, a lot of things. I hope that at the end of the day, I think on Monday, we would be able to say that we were again ready to participate on a new program, a new project, because that's what I think is the most valuable thing that this program and the Connecting Nature program did for our organization, not only for the team. We have an organization with the 2,200 people working for it, but the way Katrien and the team learned to work on a higher level and a very process, the way they manage coalitions and the way they train to manage a lot of stakeholders, a lot of coalitions together, and that's something that is very important. And I start to see it trickling down in our organization. It was really frustrated at first. Katrien will remember. Nobody understood what they were doing. They were working on a different way. So for me, that's the thing that I remember for myself after this summit, is that we need to really capture that knowledge, those trainings, and really make sure that it stays alive in our organization. And also, like I said, I hope to be participating in other programs, and I met some people today with very inspiring stories, and I hope to meet them after this summit again. I already managed to put one of my people of the team of economics with Kemia de Wit on a bicycle to the area where we are designing new areas for retail. So I hope that will lead to something.
Thank you so much. And are there also already ideas you can put in your agenda? So mark your calendar to make sure that all these things are happening. These possibly talking to the people you met, possibly making sure that the learnings stay in the organization.
Yes, that was one example, like I said, but also I talked with people that are working with making water batteries in neighborhoods. That is something that we also talked about to Katrien about that. We need to pin that, and we need to participate on that project. But also, Fair Nature is a project that is coming by, is something that we think is very important for our city. Those are those projects that we really wish to be a part of in the future. So
that sounds really great, and I hope it will all turn out that. Thank you so much. And can I ask you to reflect from the entrepreneurship perspective?
Yes. When I came here, there was a bit of curiosity left. I'm part of the project in 5 years and quite good informed, I think, about things going on. But there was still a lack of experience with this famous arts-based process in order to get some team building and get connected with nature. So I decided on the first day to be part of this workshop and do some self-experience. And I would say 2 things happened. Firstly, I was really touched from the art and the emotions shared by the participants, although the time frame was really limited with 2.5 hours. So that's my personal thing. And secondly, I could really experience that this process and this way of working together and thinking and creating something does something with a group, with a team. It creates a kind of openness, a kind of trustfulness, and I can really very good imagine that this will help to bring our big message forward to green up our cities.
You mean the empath approach session, am I right? Yes. Well, I'm happy to hear that it work this way out. So sorry, I'm happy to hear. But and is there something you want to do after today with this experience? Maybe also back home.
Yeah, that's a bit of point. I have to discuss with my colleagues about the arts-based strategy. Probably yes, but I thought about something else in the meantime. There's another mysterious thing is called the Connecting Nature Framework, and I was inspired by some of the cities which used this process and adapted it to their specific needs. And there is already a brainstorming ongoing how we can do this in our business, since we are an SME, and our plan is to grow. And I would like to come back to the statement of Marcus from the beginning this morning. We were thinking about giving him another name instead of coal dealer. Yes, probably we think to create some people, they would be called growth manager, air cleaner, or green maker in the future, and therefore I think this framework will give us some good advice, because it represents the type of our business. We start with planning, after this we do the delivery, and then a very important point, the stewardship. And so I guess we get inspired also for our work from this.
Thank you. It sounds really great. Thank you so much. And lastly, from an academic perspective.
Thank you. Yes, thanks for the question. So my objectives were quite broad and I think practical coming from the US. One was to put individual faces to the wonderful projects, something beyond one-dimensional Zoom or reading project deliverables, and to the extent possible to sort of come to understand some of the nuances of the nature-based solutions of the projects. I think some of my observations are quite similar to what we've heard. I was quite struck with the robustness and really the enabling role of the nature-based solution processes. That seems to be really a big success of the project. Also the importance of storytelling and some of the innovative, more personalized approaches like the Sarajevo process. I thought that was really just great. I would also comment on the high degree of intersectionality in the projects and indeed among the kind of connecting nature participants themselves. And on that point, I think there's a long way to run yet. And so, in terms of what I take away, it's to connect along some of those points of intersectionality when I go home. Somewhat coincidentally, my husband champions 2 garden projects. He runs a garden for refugees that includes a commercial farm share, and also is just working with other stakeholders now to build a physically accessible garden. And so, I'm hopeful that I've learned things here that I can read into those projects, both of which, by the way, are physically located at the university where I teach, where land has been leased for nothing, which might provide a model to other people here. So anyway, and I kind of hope that the level of intersectionality that's been achieved is something that other people are able to sort of draw on to maintain the forward progress of the project.
Thank you. It's really something I recognize what you're saying. Like we have, I think within the project, found ways to also cross all the borders and the structures we identified at the beginning and completely reinvented how we would make it work. But thank you all for sharing these. I hope maybe in the audience people also formulated something that they can put in their agendas and mark how they can also take their learnings home. Siobhan, can I give this back to you?
Thank you. That's fantastic. Actually, can I take the other thing there so I can walk around?
Insulin pump. So.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I can just use the mic like this then, as you don't have an attachment. Fantastic. Okay, thanks. No, definitely hold on to that. Thank you very much, Karine. And actually, we had a discussion, I was telling Karine around dinner last night, and some of the participants, I was asking them, well, what were their highlights so far? And reflexive monitoring was one of the highlights. And so, again, it's very important in terms of adaptive management that we reflect and are able to adapt quickly, because things continually evolve and things continually change in the environments and the challenges. So it's important to be able to reflect so that we can adapt quickly. And I think we have all become, I suppose we've all learned a lot, and the Reflexive Monitoring Handbook, if you haven't already seen it, is really, really, really useful. And in fact, here's my last promotion of this. If you haven't already got your own limited edition, because there will be no more of these printed, copies of the Connecting Nature guidebooks, there's really expanded versions of both the co-production and reflexive monitoring handbooks, along with handbooks on all of the other elements of the Connecting Nature process. So I invite you to take a copy and read them at your leisure on your planes, trains, and bicycles, maybe not so safe. Okay, so thank you very much to our panel. You're more than welcome to stay for the next part. What we would like to do is reflect perhaps on the future. So we've come a long way in 5 years, and you've highlighted some of the things that we've also learned a lot, the things that you've learned. But what we'd like to do in this section is maybe look at some of the challenges that remain, and in particular in the area of research and innovation, and if we can deliver any kind of key messages in terms of the challenges that still need to be addressed. You know, you've a lot of experience in this area, so what from your perspectives need to be addressed. And to do this, I'm going to invite Marcus to chair this session, and we're going to use some of the fantastic props that our visual harvester, Martine, right? Martine, can we first of all give Martine a round of applause? The really fantastic work that she has done here in capturing the kind of key moments. And if you haven't had a chance to have a look at them, I'm going to invite maybe everybody sitting there in your chairs to maybe, you can even get up and have a look. Marcus, you're the camera expert here. If you can get up, maybe feel free to get up. You know, I know how much. Yeah, but to have a look and see if there's anything that jumps out at you from these panels. Okay. Yeah, so feel free to get up and have a look at one of them and see in particular if there are any points that jump out at you in terms of challenges remaining that we can address. But what I might do, because Marcus, you okay? We've all got microphones, that's great. So Marcus, I'll hand over you maybe to direct.
Okay, thank you so much, Siobhan. And thank you, Martine. These are fantastic. I think we're, I have to say, in terms of skills, it's very, if only we could, we're here listening, but it's very hard to listen and interpret and then repeat it and onto in an artistic way. So I have to say it's a very interesting and challenging skill. So thank you very much. The session that we're talking about, oh yes, okay, don't let me stop you, go ahead. Thank you. The session we were there is about reflexive, but this is more reflecting the work that we've done over the last couple of days. But actually, in many ways, when I look at the boards, it reminds me of your office, Nikki. When we were writing the proposal, we went to and Stuart was there as well, writing stickies and drawing on our windows, and it reminds me an awful lot of that process. So we've actually come full circle. So a lot of the things that are said here or are shown here are reflected in the 5 years of the project, and so I suppose if there's any things, Gillian, you were pointing something there, maybe just which one did you pick out?
The bit that was jumping out at me is change needs to be done at all levels, and I say that as somebody that works in a council where it's okay, I can change, but if the politicians don't change, if the managers don't change, and if the process within the council itself doesn't change, then I'm hitting my head against a brick wall.
Okay, so change is good, but really hard to pull out of people.
I think you get a lot of people, you can see it at the minute with, okay, nobody wears masks anymore. It's advised to wear, but don't. And everybody just wants to go back to the old normal that was 2 years ago. But there is a lot of change that happened over the last 2 years that's actually good and we should be keeping. Like getting out and having a daily walk and not commuting as much and re-engaging with nature. Yeah. But if we just go pell-mell back to what was the comfort blanket and trying to ignore the change that happened, then we've got a problem.
Okay, so I'm going to take from that, because when it comes to businesses, they're all about change. And if I'm right in saying the SMEs that have been involved in the project, which we talk about, but we don't talk about in great depth sometimes, their change is 100% necessary, or you don't make money, your job is gone. So tell us more. So have you picked out anything here that you see in terms of that, or maybe? Yes.
I don't know if you remember Joey. Yes, it was Joey. The dog of Hachu. Ah, yes. Ah, okay, Hachu. Ah, it was not the name. So the name is Jerry. The Joey.
Sneezing dog.
The sneezing dog.
Yes. You had to be there.
I found this before I knew that I had to talk about changes, but I think it fits perfectly. Because this Lean talked to us, apart from the communication of her dog, she talked to us about the change of mind. I remember there was a sketch with the brain half empty and half green, if I'm not wrong, and I think that's the overall picture for that what you said before. There needs to be a change in brain, and I have to say, me personally, I felt this last 5 years while being here in this project and while being active in the green sector, that this starts to happen. Also, I want to also link this to Professor Rothmans, who said it's worth to look at what already happened, and I think it starts to happen, and all the projects we call successful up to now are linked to people where we could feel that this shift of thinking already started.
Thanks, Sven. So speaking of people, and we know that working with people is very difficult, as we heard earlier on today. I come to you because you weren't in the project the whole way through. Well, you're in Genk, of course, but in terms of the communities, do you see anything here that sort of helps with bringing your work to a wider community, or tell us what your thoughts are of some of these?
I see the value creation wordings here, and the presentation about plural valuation. It's a tremendous tool, but perhaps we need some more fine-tuning that we can use it on a local scale. If we can show people what the creation is of the value, but in plural forms, then we have a good platform to sell these projects to the people. For a lot of people, nature and nature-based solutions, it's not their daily life yet. So we have to show them what advantage is in it in multiple form, not just the flowers and the bees. So there are some tools for the local would help.
That's brilliant. And you may not have seen this, but when we originally drew the tourist project, we had a triangle. Do you remember the triangle? And as part of the triangle, we had academics, SMEs, and municipalities. And in the middle of the triangle was communities. And we've always found it difficult. So that's where the co-creation process comes in. So I thought that's you just said it more or less the same. But and Toon, have in your mind anything here that is jumping out as being?
I took some sessions these days, and I think there are three, for me, from my perspective as a city organization, there are three things that I think are important. Also, things that we struggle with still. One of the things is that we form indicators. If we talk about nature-based solutions, how can we assess the impact? We also always say that we are an organization that really are impact-oriented, but I feel that we still struggle formulating those things. And it's not only on the Steamer program, Steamer Valley program, it's in all projects in the city. Also, what is very interesting for me is how can we really tap in the nature-based solution entrepreneurship I feel in Genk we see some examples, some little examples of it beginning without us initiating it, so that's a positive thing to see. But I feel that we as a mid-sized European city, we are maybe not the right scale to really tap into that domain and to really stimulate and get that going. So I think it's a challenge for us, or we take that challenge, of course, to put it on the agenda of Flanders, on the Flemish region level. But like I said before, for me also it's a really challenge to take the framework and the way the team has learned to work now to don't let it get lost if they stop, or maybe tomorrow when there's somebody else. We have to really preserve it in the organization and let it trickle down in the organization. I think that's something that we really need to do a couple of years.
Thank you, Toon. And Jennifer, on a level that is about the, obviously the one of those parts of the triangle was the academic side. What's your reflections on some of the images that are, what stands out in your mind?
Yeah, sure, thank you. And I think I'll build upon the comments here about indicators, and how do we know if we've achieved success sort of wrapped in a future research challenge, because I wouldn't be a very good academic if I didn't talk about that. I was struck by the comments from, I'm looking at this board here, I think Jan Rotman, maybe, I'm sure I mispronounced that, about indirect effects of actions. So say the indirect effects of nature-based solutions, in this case, outweighing or having more value than direct effects. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. I mean, that's true in models of trade theory and how we look at the result of incentives for energy efficiency programs and things like that. So why shouldn't that be applied to nature-based solutions? And if we could figure out how to measure that, then we could further optimize our processes for others of you to to sort of attain those positive spillover effects and certainly to try to avoid the negative ones. So I think that's really an interesting research avenue. There is precedent in other economic sectors, so we don't have to sort of start with no conception how to move forward there. And I think it fits very well also with my earlier comment on sort of intersectionality. There's a lot of value there. Some of it we're not even necessarily able to articulate or know about, and some of it hasn't happened yet.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Thank you so much. Siobhan, did you want to... Actually, what stands out... I'm going to put you on the spot. What stands out for you, Siobhan, who's pretending that she wasn't expecting this? Because I suppose actually we talked about we actually had it as the quintuple helix, and the fifth element was actually nature itself.
Yeah, around.
Do we remember that when we tried to sell that to Europe and they bought it?
Yeah.
But in fact, actually, it was a very, very important part.
This is what we have here on the audience is the quadruple helix, and I think Yossi, you're playing a very important role because you're bringing the inside of that triangle, the community, and you're connecting it with the nature, which is basically all of our citizens are within the wider domain of nature. So we're all part of nature. Nature is part of us. So you're making that connection very clear, and we're there to support and facilitate that connection. Look, if I'm talking about future research gaps and challenges, I have a little bit of an advantage here because I asked all of our work package leaders. I hate to use that word we have managed to avoid it for the whole event, but I have asked all of the leaders of these different elements of the framework process what is missing. So I pretty much know what their recommendations are. But it's really interesting that you have touched on some of them. Because, Toon, the first one was impact assessment. And there is still a major challenge. I think all of our cities... I remember actually coming here to Genk at the start. And the city of Genk, when we first came here, there was almost a walkout when we said you have to measure impact. And I asked, how do you measure impact? And they said, we walk down the road and we see the citizens and they are happy. And therefore we know we have achieved impact. And we thought, okay, that's actually, you know, that's one of the indicators of impact, but you might need to have something a little bit more rigorous in order to secure more funding. So there was a resistance to that originally, and it is so interesting to see then how our cities have now become the biggest advocates for measuring impact and really understanding how important it is for so many different facets of reflexive monitoring and adaptive behaviour, as well as funding and so many other benefits from it. But it's still really, really challenging. And one of the recommendations that came out was the need for academic partners to step in and play more of a role, and for funding to be put in place to support academic partners at a local level in supporting cities in doing that. And AMU, for example, did a fantastic role in supporting Poznan and Shushanak in Armenia. Fantastic work in terms of impact. So it's really important that we have that relationship between local academic partners and local municipalities to continue to measure that impact, because it's expensive and time-consuming and challenging to do by yourself. That's the first thing. I could talk about all the rest, but the only other one that I'm going to draw attention to, and again, it's something that Toon mentioned, we're very much aligned, you know, is the economic potential. And that goes back to the point that I made yesterday, that ultimately, if we need to secure that tripling and quadrupling of investment that Isabel keeps showing us in the diagrams every time she gets on a stage, if we want to do that, we have to be able to measure impact. But we also need to be able to produce data on how we can make that transition possible by providing alternative paths, alternative jobs that work in harmony with nature. So yeah, that's just my reflections on perhaps 2 areas for future research, but there's so much more, but we don't have time.
I agree, and actually just in some of the summaries, I'm reflecting now a little bit more over the 5 years, and one of the things that came up in practically every one of our meetings are the voices that weren't in the room. I remember this came up a lot, the unusual suspects.
Unusual suspects, yeah.
The unusual, and the voices that are not in the room. Now, you know, we have people with different backgrounds and abilities that don't always are able to engage. We have an enormous change in the population in terms of recent arrivals, migrants and so on, which Genk can actually show us some of the models of how to engage. We had been talking about the different community, 170 different communities, is that right? Different organized. So those voices. Dimitra is in here somewhere talking about people who are from the older community who are not necessarily heard, and for the last 2 years were shut away and not listened, well, weren't heard and weren't seen because of coronavirus, and so effectively were out of the public view and the dialogues that we were still trying to do on an online system that not all people have access to. And people of different abilities to be at different ages and so on and so forth. So these voices are something that we're still not hearing. And I in some of the images here, I can sort of see it. They're not written explicitly, and I like to think that that's emerging out of our things. So this is where the next big challenge. But as we heard, for every challenge, there's a significant amount of opportunity that comes with that in terms of either innovation of how we communicate, innovation in how we engage, innovation in how we co-create. And I like to think that we were pretty good at doing that, but more to do.
Brilliant. Well, I think these people will let you sit down. I'll invite Toon to stay with us, please, but everyone, you're welcome to stay or you're welcome to get out of the spotlight if you prefer. Gillian, are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. So, Marcus, please stay as well. Okay.
Okay.
Mic drop. I always wanted to do that. Can I do that at the end? Can I do a mic drop at the end? Connecting nature out, and then I'll pick it up and say urban by nature hubs in. Okay?
There's €4,000.
Oh, okay.
It's not in the budget.
It's not in the budget, okay. So this is we're into the last couple of minutes of this highly successful Connecting Nature Impact Summit, and there are, as we draw to an end, there are always a couple of people that we have to thank. So I would like to bring to the stage, before I invite Marcus and Toon to say a few final comments, I would just like to say a few thanks to the team here in Genk, who I think everybody has commented to me personally has done an absolutely amazing job in organising this summit. So I'm going to invite Wendy, Mean, Sarah and Kim to come down to the stage, and then they have been ably supported by the Connecting Nature partners. I told you she couldn't stay away. And Katrine, if you could join us from Climate Alliance, Fiona Cooper and Isabel Fletcher from Horizon Nua, and Dimitra, who has stepped in with her creativity and organised pretty much the exhibition area out there at very short notice. And can we give them all a great round of applause, because they have done an amazing job. So,
also from the bottom of my heart, thank you everybody for helping us making this happen today. I want to thank you all for participating today, everybody that is watching us from home, but also all the citizens that are outside now participating in activities, but also tomorrow. Thank you for all the keynote speakers and all the panel members that participated and gave us some really interesting insights this weekend. But we have some special thank yous that we have to say. This is for the local team, the people who didn't sleep the last 2 weeks, and I think Sunday they're finally going to sleep again. Thank you, Mean. Give them a big applause. But also for, I think, if I am not mistaken, the team of Connecting Nature, Fiona.
Fiona, yep. Who can't fit the flowers in their suitcase.
Isabel. Thank you. Anne-Katrine and Dimitra. Thank you very much for making this happen. Thank you for all the help. Also, thank you to the whole team of course, Sustainability and Development, because they also helped, but they are not standing in front of the stage. And then last but not least, we have something for you, Siobhan. Thank you very much for making this happen in Genk. We're very proud that we could host this. I never said your name wrong, because... But that was because Katrine learned me the name, because she talked about you so much even before I met you. So thank you very much, and we have a little gift for you too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Toon. And actually, speaking of Katrine, where is she? Where is Katrine? Katrine, it's your turn. Please come down. We have a gift for you. Look, I have a secret drawer. Whoops. Marcus will make sure I don't break the wires. So we have a very special gift also for our Alderman. I think every city needs a leader. And you and Wim have been really great supporters of this project from the very start. And the team here has really benefited from your support and encouragement. And we know that you are going to go and continue to develop and continue to upscale and outscale nature-based solutions, and we will continue to work with you and follow that journey. So thank you very much for your courage and your leadership. Now, I agree with Toon. The two people we've been working for the last 5 years, it was great to meet Kim and to meet Sarah, to meet Wendy, but Mean and Katrine has been Team Genk, along with Katrine Colson and Peter Voss, who aren't here today, but are very much with us in thought. They've really contributed to this project as a frontrunner city. And Mean spent her 40th birthday last weekend working. So I have two, Well, that's young in my book. And so I have a little gift. I don't know who likes the hard alcohol and who likes the soft. So I'll let you swap between you. But we have a little present for both of you as well to say thank you very much as well, okay? You're more than welcome to stay, but if you would be more comfortable leaving while we say the closing words, I think I know that this is a... But thank you again so much for all of the hours put in. So I'm going to invite, and thank you, Toon, very much for your words. I'm going to invite Marcus to say one final word, and then I will wrap up
with something. Yeah. Now that we all know means age.
Do you want to know what age you are?
I suppose, how do you follow that? Thank you so much, everybody, once again. And I'm also conscious of all the people who've come and gone over the years. We've had lots of new ones arrive. You saw Marlene today with her young Connecting Nature babies. We had quite a few arrivals and a few unfortunate departures over the year and over the 5 years. Yes. Yeah. So I kind of was trying to think of, I think Wim's quote that about connecting to nature. It takes a city to connect to nature. It reminds me like it takes a village to bring up a child. It's like it takes us. I think actually it's quite enough. It's an awful shame I didn't know that when we were coming up with the little logo-y thing you see in the bottom of our PowerPoints. This bringing cities to life, bringing life into cities, because I think that would have been an even better one to put in there, because I thought it was a very good element of it. But one of the things that's, for me, quite important is it's like very important that we don't think this is the end of Connecting Nature. This is not, it's the end of the funding for Connecting Nature. It's not the end of the project, it's the end of the funding of it. The Connecting Nature framework and all the things that were talked about over the last 2 days, plus also all the other things that are currently going on, including, which we didn't mention too much, is spinning out of companies. We've had quite a few companies come out of the project. And so it's important to know that this momentum, this transfer of knowledge, this continuation is part of a longer line of things. It's not that it's just that we've left the funding stage and now we're going into the ethereal stage where it starts to go out into the world and scale out as opposed to up. I think that's the definition. We're trying to figure out the definition between scaling up and scaling out, but going out beyond the boundaries that were there in the funding proposal, shall we say. So I'd like to think that that's been a very productive few years. I think we've got a lot of reflections on that. And I would also say that because we're part of the beginning of a journey to bring nature-based solutions to a much more, to normalize it, to become something that is just thought of as a normal, ordinary, straightforward thing. I mean, there was a time when there was no solar panels on roofs, and now they're absolutely everywhere. There was a transition, and we know about transition and transformations we've talked about it a lot. So I'd like to think that this project is essentially just launching maybe I won't use the ship metaphor after we saw one sinking earlier on, but I'd like to think that this is the idea that we are moving. But the one thing we need to be quite clear on is that the baselines of today are not going to be the baselines of the future. They're going to keep changing. So projects and ourselves need to keep moving with the times. We need to continually gather new data, update our existing data. So while we have things in book form and template form at the moment, this is all going to be a live discussion for the foreseeable future while we tackle the more serious challenges in society, such as climate change, biodiversity loss, and so on. So I'd like to say thank you very much for all of you to be here, and I'll hand you over to the boss.
Is this one working? Yes. Yeah. Oh, it is working. Okay. Thank you. Marcus, please stay up here now, because I don't have a special gift. But Marcus, as everybody knows, has been the coordinator of...
no, it's not on.
It's not working, yeah. I asked Marcus to share this stage with me, but because I've been the coordinator for the last year, but Marcus did the hard slog for the first 4 years. And in fact, Marcus with Nikki, I think, have probably invented the concept of nature-based solutions, or we're certainly among the pioneers of the concept back when we were in the tourist project. So he's been a very important part of the journey, and I would like to thank him for his contribution. But what I would like to do is go back to what I see very much as the stars of the show, and they're beautifully captured here, our cities. Because really the cities, I think for this summit, above all else, has showed me the absolutely critically essential role of cities and local authorities and strong, courageous political leaders in making a difference and in making a change. So I would like to go back back to the beginning, and Stuart mentioned at the beginning the real stars of the show, and I would like to have a round of applause for each and every one of our cities who have really contributed and made this project the success that it is. So thank you very much. And just, I'm going to say one final word. Marcus mentioned that this is not the end. That's very true. When Turris ended 5 years ago, we were all very sad. But many of us in Turris, whether as partners or not, are still connected 5 years later. I think, as Helix wrote in a beautiful book, it's a journey of 10 years that we've been on. And that's only the start of the journey. We've seen a huge... People talk about transition and transformation and say it takes a long time. We have seen it happen in a short period of time of 5 years. So it is possible, and we are making a difference. And what I really like is that I don't know how many people know that yesterday the EC announced the 100 cities that have been selected in Europe as, what are they called? I have to get this right, in the EU mission for climate neutral and smart cities by 2030. And Ursula von der Leyen called these cities trailblazers. They set higher standards for themselves than other cities in Europe. They will lead in the future. And I am so proud to say that 5 of our Connecting Nature cities are among those cities that were selected. So a special, A special congratulations to Janina, who were so excited last night. Honestly, I don't know if anybody, they probably couldn't sleep all night. And Thessaloniki, of which the city of our partner in Pavlos Melos. Sarajevo, and Belma again was absolutely thrilled today. Bologna, and in our associated country, but always a very close friend of ours in Glasgow. So huge congratulations to these trailblazers, and I'm very sure in the next round we are going to be working with our other 5 cities, because you guys are absolutely, in our eyes, you're all trailblazers, and we have learned so much from you over the last 5 years, and we look forward to continuing to work with you through the Urban by Nature hubs, through the Connecting Nature Enterprise platform, and through all of the other initiatives and projects that we will get together on. So a big thank you from me. Are you sure I can't do a mic drop?
Don't.
No? Okay. There we go. Thank you very much. Over and out.